Hello, welcome to Podsongs. I'm Jack Stafford, and I interview inspiring people in service to others as inspiration for a new song. Now, today I'm speaking with a former heavyweight pro boxer. He grew up in one of, if not the roughest neighborhood in America. But as well as the brawn, he also has the brains. And after he retired from boxing, he went back to university to study physics, and he's now an author, consultant, competitive chess player, full-time tweeter with stoic street smarts. Let's get under the skin of Ed Latimore. Great, well thanks so much for taking the time to chat to me. I've already listened to your story and it's fascinating. I heard you on the Jordan Harbinger show, and you said on there the questions were so good that it was like therapy.
Jordan, that was a great show, man. I really enjoyed that one. He's just good at what he does, man. A lot of people, I think, one thing I've learned is that a lot of people believe that a podcast is just an interview. And the better guys I've recognized that they realize that it's more like a conversation, and then it becomes part of their stick. They understand how to talk and bring out the best in the guest, and it's really cool.
Well, let's just bring down the bar here, and let's not expect that from me because let's lower your estimations, your expectations. You see, I can't even say the right words.
It's all good. You know what I didn't realize too in our last scheduling. So I figured you must have been not in the United States because of the date I selected. I was like, oh, okay. And then my girl was like, you have something on Thanksgiving? Because I show her my calendar. She can see it so she can schedule stuff in. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I guess I do. I'll have to do something about that.
Yeah, but I was going to say what insult that would be for her, but she's from Portugal now.
Yeah. She's born and raised there, and she's been in the United States for what is it now? Well, since she was 12, so however long that is. She's 36 now, so.
And you were just living over in Portugal for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a really good time. I loved it. I think that my plan going forward in life is to purchase some property in Europe and here as well, because I like to have two. Now with that said, I'm not sure though, because we live in this amazing time, and the cool thing about that is that it's really easy to go and get a residence. I mean, it's just not challenging at all. The only thing you give up is equity, right? So if I'm renting a place, I don't get anything from it. How big of a deal that is how big of a deal that is, and I have to figure it out. No, I love being over there, man, because it's such a sharp contrast to the United States in many ways. How the people interact with one another, how public services are run. I was really impressed by that aspect. The weather was great. We were in Lisbon though, so I mean, I think the European. I didn't know this until we went. We actually spent the week between Christmas and New Year. So I think we left the day after Christmas, or Christmas Day, and came back the day New Year's Day. We spent it in the Algarve in the south of Portugal, and I didn't realize they were looking at us like we were crazy for speaking Portuguese, because that many people speak English. They just assume that we must speak English, and we just I don't speak nearly as much Portuguese as I speak English, but we go into restaurants and just the basic greeting and talk, and then the girl would just fire off, and I was like, whoa, slow down. And a lot of the bars down there are owned by people from the UK. So
it's an English enclave. I've been through there. It's beautiful now.
I would never want to live. I won't say never, I really like European cities, and then where we were in relation to Lisbon, which was right outside a little place called Padet, about 25 minutes outside the city by train, en route to
Mm.
Cascais. I know there's a lot of people from the UK who spend time in Cascais as well. I loved it. But I don't know. You know what it is really. I'm not gonna lie. You know it is. It doesn't rain that often in the South of Portugal, and I love the rain. And I spent my first 3 months there in Lisbon, and then the next almost 3 months in in Porto, where it rains a lot,
Mm.
and so that was a good time too. Got to see the contrast of the two cities, because now I've been to like I guess the five major regions of the
Mm.
country: Porto, Lisbon, the Algarve, the Alentejo, and then that area that we'll just say is where Coimbra University is. That and experiencing all of it, I loved every just part of.
Starting to sound like a travel show.
Yeah,
It's just selling Portugal.
the cool thing about Portugal is Americans don't go. You guys have a nice stronghold there. Well, okay, I won't say they don't go. They didn't for a while. I guess
Mm.
the big announcement for from the travel, what the hell is it called here? The State Department. But the State
Hmm.
Department, the big announcement was prior to COVID, they were anticipating for the first time in history, more than 1 million Americans were going to visit Portugal this year. But that clearly didn't happen. But it's gaining popularity because of Instagram. Instagram has done the country a wonderful service.
Ah, really?
Oh, for sure. It's beautiful. First of all, it's beautiful. And I don't think a lot of Americans knew about it. I mean, you guys have known for a
Mm.
while, but a lot of us like, oh, that's fantastic. And the only reason why I went, I won't say the only reason, but one of the only reasons I went is because I'm with someone from there. And when I went
Mm.
in 2017, we brought in the new year there between 2017 and 2018, and I thought it was great. As I remember the exact moment where I knew I was going to go back. We woke up, we stayed in a hotel in Estoril, and we when we woke up, the hotel wall side was facing. The river, or because I think that's the river at that point, not quite the ocean. All right, it's close. And I said, "Wow, why am I going home?" Because at that point I was making not what I make now, but certainly enough to like live on with my
Mm.
internet stuff. And I said, "Why am I going home?" And I looked over at my girlfriend. And I said, "The irony. You still have a job. That's why we're going home." So over the next. Uh, 2 years, I actually did the math moving over there as if I'd have to take care of both of us, and then her travel business, because she's involved in travel, really blew up. The final, or the first half of 2019, second half of 2018, first half of 2019, her travel business really blew up, and so it was like living on two full-time incomes, which compared to America was, I mean,
Mm.
you want to talk about a great lifestyle inflation. I mean, I live fine here, but live fine there, but there I absolutely did not think about there was not a single purchase I made where I was like, oh, let me think about. Nope. Just it was to the point where I was like, oh, I feel like I should be. But I think this is what happens when you're really content with your life, that you don't seek material things to find satisfaction and find fulfillment. So I mean, there wasn't anything I could really spend money on. I'm probably just traumatized from like all the travel I tried to do before, and I was like scraping by trying to survive the week and figure out food. Now it's like, oh, I'll eat where I want, and I don't even eat that much because
Mm.
I'm an intermittent faster, and or at the very least, I'm aware of the calories I put in my body. So I'm like, I feel kind of heavy. Just ate 6 hours ago, maybe just something light. But it's cool. There's tons of light little cafes around Portugal too. So,
Oh, you're selling it to me. No, I'm in the south of Italy here, so I kind of got a similar setup.
oh
But
man, so you got great weather there. You're fantastic. You don't you. I wanted to see Italy, and I didn't get a chance to go. But as things open up, hopefully in 2021, Italy
Mm.
is big on my list. I also want to go and spend a lot of time in places not called Paris, but are in France. So I like to go see like
Mm-hmm.
Bordeaux, Toulouse, Nice, Normandy, all those places.
Well, let's wait till the vaccine. I mean,
Yeah, well, what good news, bad news. The first vaccine was handed out today in the UK.
mm.
A 90-year-old woman got it, which whatever, right? I already
it's
have.
actually it's actually a good time to travel now. The hotels are empty, the flights are
Oh, for
cheap.
sure.
Uh,
We went to Mexico. We went to Mexico the end of October, and the experience we had for the price we paid for it does not normally match up. So
mm,
it was a good time though. I mean, you had to walk around with your mask and that stuff on, but people were ready to get out
mm,
and do stuff, and they were doing their best to make sure
mm,
that their health authority wouldn't shut it down. Because what we discovered down there is that because every country does it differently. Like for example, I have no idea how Italy's doing it, but Mexico, their designation is very similar to the United States in that the states inside the country decide how they're going to go about it. And the issue with Mexico is it is a developing nation. I mean, I don't think at least not America. I don't know how many people think of it that way, but they don't have nearly the hospital infrastructure that we have. So part of the restrictions were not as intense just because they would be hard to enforce. But in other areas where like the tourists come through, like Jalisco State, they were like, no, 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 no. We're going to keep this under control because the last thing we need is you guys infecting our citizens. In fact, when we were there, we went there and everything was more or less open. You had to wear a mask, but it was open.
mm.
And like 3 or 4 days into our trip, they announced an emergency two week kind of rollback. We had to change our dinner reservation because it was at
Oh
night
wow.
one place, and they were like, "We're not going to be open because they're making us close." And so, yeah, man, things happen on the fly, but I'm hopeful because no matter how you feel about COVID, if you just follow what everyone else feels about it, then the vaccine uh, should should allow things to kind of get back to normal.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I should because with the idea with this podcast is that I write a song about every guest. So we should probably talk more about you.
Oh,
Otherwise, if I write a song about the travel, it'll be because so I know you've spoken a lot about your story before. You must get tired of hearing about your own story, but it's so fascinating. And I've actually been to Philadelphia where you grew up, and
well,
I've seen a bit of the
I
city
actually
there.
grew up in Pittsburgh, which is in the same state. Everyone makes this mistake.
Ah,
Don't feel bad. One of my best friends had me in his phone. An American best friend had me in his phone as Ed Philly, and I seen it one day. It was up on his Mac, and I was like, "Who's Ed Philly?" He's like, "That's you." I was like, "Man, I'm from Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia." He was like, "Oh, same state, right?" So, uh,
okay.
but no, but you know what's funny? My dad ended up living in Philadelphia for a while, so it's like I've been there several times. Plus my girlfriend's sister-in-law lives there, or not sister-in-law, her actual sister lives there. So it's a great city.
Oh yeah.
I'm
No,
just
no,
not
I
I'm
loved
just
it.
not
I
from there.
recall.
You know?
Well, couldn't you just say it would be easier if you just said to everyone you were from there? Just let's just
It, you know,
might be
it,
easier
it
for
really
people.
would be. But you know what I found? I figured out. I learned this in the most unlikely places. Portugal, Lisbon being one of them. The Pittsburgh Steelers are so famous. Like anybody who knows football knows immediately about. Like when I mention I'm from Pittsburgh, they go like Steelers, and I'm like, yeah, like the Steelers, man.
Ah,
So
oh, okay.
so yeah, if it was like I'm trying to think of an example, some small city in Florida, everyone would be like
Hmm.
Miami, like no, I'd probably just go Miami or something like that. But Pittsburgh's fairly, at least for a city of this size, way more well known than it probably should be.
Yeah, yeah. But you grew up in the roughest of the roughest estates.
In the now where I grew up in the city, it was about as bad as it can
Mm,
get. Certainly for the city, but any of the worst areas in the country you could visit, yeah, sure, very much
mm,
like that. Because it's low income, and low income comes with a bunch of other problems, and those problems mainly being violent crime, and what is it's a violent crime, and what does the violent crime come from? A lot of the things done to sustain a lifestyle, to make, make a better life. A lot of drug dealing, so you see that, and then what comes with that is the violence to come and deal with the turf and the gangs that kind of spring up to protect other people who are being bullied. Because look, man, the worst bullies are people who don't have anything. Um, Around people who don't have anything either. You see this a lot. This dynamic play out. I remember when I lived in LA, I learned about a place called Skid Row, which is this basically where all the homeless people live. And the biggest problem is crime against one another. A lot of beatings
mm,
and rapes and everything, because humans are animals, and when you remove structure, or you reduce structure, the closer you get to that animal nature. And in a place like a public house, you see it in public housing, you see it in prisons, place like Skid Row, right? Those dystopian scenarios where like society breaks down. It's like every person fends for themselves on some Mad Max type shit. Like that's not too far from what would probably most likely happen based on what we see. You know, so you grow up in that environment, and you figure out how to survive. It's really important
mm,
to figure that out, because you're not just dealing with here's a threat on my life, here is how I'll deal with it, or here's a threat on my being, and here's how I'll deal with it. You're also dealing with the the things you have to do to navigate and stay safe, and those don't tend to have positive uh, benefits either. For example, if you did realize, that being a popular, well-liked kid is a way to be safe, you may do things to become popular and well liked. And it's not popular and well liked, being a good student, following the rules, doing your work, going home and listening to your parents. That's not cool, right? So you got to
mm,
figure out a way to balance that, so you don't end up, um, fighting just for the sake of fighting. A lot of fights going on because kids got to protect them. Because if kids are fighting to establish a name, to take revenge,
mm,
I only fight to defend myself. I was never interested in just going out there and doing that. And that mentality already reduces a lot of problems that can occur. I don't join a gang because I don't feel like, because there's no father figure at home and I need some money and some protection. But people do that.
mm,
Never was my mo to do that kind of thing, to be a gang member. But but you can't be a victim of these guys either. It's an interesting balancing act. You have to be cool enough with them to where you're not a target, but not so cool with them you end up engaged in their shenanigans. Okay, it's very
mm. A threat.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and that's why most people can't do it. I mean, it's either one or the other. But there are things you can do to protect yourself. I mean, I figured out real early that if I wasn't around, the odds of things happening to me decreased dramatically. So I spent a lot of time playing video games when I was coming up. When I got to high school, I found out that I wasn't bad at sports. Athletes seem to get immunity in places like this. So now I could be me, but as long as I'm playing sports and doing a good job, people are really excited. They don't want to bother you, because now you represent something that they can touch and attain. It's not like when they don't look at intelligence or accomplishments of an academic nature as threatening. And I think it's because society never society never said the athletes are the superior class. We've always been, for especially in America for African Americans, it's one of the few areas we've been allowed to excel in. Arts being the other one. So traditionally, those domains were not given the trouble. So if you were good at sports, you had some, you could sing or something, you'd be alright, right? Uh, I was Another thing that probably protected me is I was a bit of a cornball, and in the video games, so girls weren't interested in me, at least the ones I grew up around. So there was no danger of getting someone pregnant early and ruining my life in that way with the child support and the stress that comes with it. So uh, it's a really interesting environment, and coming from it, you just pick up a lot. They can give you an advantage. Now, I don't want to paint the picture that like this is a great school. Like no, because what we're looking at right now is survivor's bias. It's For every person that turns out like me, there are
Oh
mo-
yeah, yeah.
there are a lot of people that don't. So uh, I'm really lucky. I have to be lucky for the mother I had. She didn't do a lot of things right, but she got some key things right, and that's why I'm here. I got to be thankful for the genetics I got, the intelligence to recognize things, the temperament to not be a fool, the athleticism to have something to give me to stand out with. I don't know quite what the word is for it, but the ability to not want to or need to fit in. That's luck. I got a friend. It's weird. Birthdays only a week apart. We were friends when we were like younger, and then we split apart. And just recently reconnected. This intelligent kid, just as intelligent as anyone else, he ends up going on to become one of the biggest drug dealers in the city. Uh, it just luck. We're all designed
Mm.
differently, you know.
So you were one of the smartest kids in school, but then quite late, 22, you decided to become a boxer and then turn professional. So isn't that it's kind of strange that you went down the because you had the brains and the brawn. You could have gone either.
It's funny. We only, or one that can only be said now because we're looking at me. What is it now? 35, so 22, like 13 years later, we're looking at it. But you have to remember what's going through my head at the time. I'm not in school because I basically failed out of school. I'm not doing anything at all constructive. I think my jobs were like, I think I was working at Starbucks, a science center, uh, and then I volunteered for AmeriCorps, which was a smart decision because it set me up to actually have a job later and that sprung board some other things. But the point of bringing all this up is I actually didn't think I was ever going to be able to do college. Um, and I wasn't sure how this fighting thing was going to turn out, but I knew I had to do something because I was not making progress in any other area of my life, and I needed something to consolidate me, to focus this energy
Mm.
around. Okay, looking back now, yeah, you can go, oh, this guy is smart. He went and got a degree in physics and is doing great. Well, I didn't get my degree till I was 38, 33. Remember, I'm 35 now, and so it took a little while, but boxing is one of those things. I think okay, so one of the things that I think is missing in today's society are uh, rites of passage,
Oh yeah, yeah.
things that make you develop, that you have to push yourself through when the pain and then the failure is real and there's no safety net or whatever. Because society is very easy now. No, we can complain about it much as we want, but it's very easy. In fact, I think part of the reason we complain so much is because it's so easy. So, going to do something like boxing, uh, I just think about the training and getting hit, stuff like that. Uh,
Mm.
it's
Did you want some discipline? You were kind of craving something to some structure. Or?
I wasn't craving near that. You know what I was craving? I didn't like feeling like a nobody, man. I felt like
Mm.
a damn nobody. Uh, because I was 22, I didn't go to school. All I was doing was drinking and hanging out. But my ego, I wanted to be better. I think
Mm.
everyone sees themselves as becoming great, right? But who goes and does something to kind of make that happen? And I said, I got to get on the road with this, man. I'm 22, and I'm so happy I did that because a lot of people. I've talked to so many people that go, "Oh man, I always wanted to be a fighter. I always wanted to do this. I want to do that." I went and did it, and put together a career and built a lot of friendships and changed myself entirely through that process. But it's because I took it. I took the step and did it, and my life turned out pretty well as a result. I think.
Yeah, no.
But I know that it's part of. If I could talk about one thing that made the biggest difference, it would be fighting. Fighting, fighting showed me that if I put my mind to something, I could eventually learn it and develop it. It let me see that pain isn't that big of a deal. I can work through it, and the pursuit of something. It taught me how to be likable without being a play. It taught me how to be confrontational as well. How to be aggressive, how to deal with losing, how to deal with winning, how to do it. Fighting. If I wasn't fighting, I probably wouldn't have had the motivation to quit drinking. You know, all of these
Mm.
things can be centered around me fighting. I have so much just respect and reverence and awe for the sport and what it's done to me because every decision I look at, uh, every good thing that comes to me today, a lot of it is on the back of the work I put in as a fighter. Even my social media presence, most of it grew when I wasn't fighting, mind you, after I had stopped. But it gave me the start. It gave me the experiences. It gave me the credibility. Made me a person. You can look up on the internet and see this guy's real.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
it gave me the confidence that I could go and study physics. I was a failing math student in high school. Did not. Well, I never thought math was ever in my future, but because I watched myself become good at boxing over time, I said, okay, if I can do this, then I can do anything. I can learn anything. So uh, I'm so happy I did that.
Mm.
Happy I
Mm.
fought.
Because you're almost undefeated, wasn't it? 13
13
wins,
1-1,
one
yeah,
one.
and boxing is a crazy game. That record, for what it's worth, is just a record. Um, Undefeated or not, it's still getting into the ring and people being able to go, wow, this guy's truly was a real deal. Because
Mm.
a lot
Mm.
of people, especially nowadays with social media, um, anyone can kind of pop up and kind of build. It's very rare that a person has got like a legit life behind it. I can, uh, and I figured out the weight of that. So it's no coincidence I talk about my education and schooling. People will see that and go, okay, this is a real person. Uh,
Mm.
let me be interested in what this guy has to say. I can believe and trust and follow. So, uh,
Yeah, you're a great role model because you do have that. You do value the education and also the boxing, and
oh,
that's one thing I'm trying to focus.
absolutely.
Yeah.
uh, I think that I think that one of our purposes, is to never stop challenging and pushing ourselves.
Hmm.
So, like for example, the big thing I'm learning now is I've been 2 hours a day plus homework in the evenings plus watching a show. I've really been putting my brain through the paces on Spanish. And so now, I mean, I've got a fairly comfortable grasp of it right now. I know there's a lot I have to learn, but I can communicate and talk about things, and it's great. And then when I'm
Mm.
done with that, I'll have. I think my goal is to be a B2 Spanish speaker in 2021. Right now, I'm pretty dead smack in the middle of B1. There's just the skill differentials is fairly great. And then after that, I'm going to move on to probably Russian because it's a different way to think. I didn't want to learn another Romance language. Like from what I understand of Italian, for example, is that if you know Spanish, you pretty much know Italian. Like I think like the 82% of the words are similar in the language.
Yeah, that's
And when
true.
I
Yeah.
was and the Portuguese I learned, I'm just like, all I'm doing is pronouncing these words differently, but the rules are the same for construction and formation. So I'm gonna go study a Slavic language and see how that changes my brain and what can I pick up and work on and deal with and do on that front.
Yeah. So what I see in all your things you do is you say, brain, you do this. You focus on this. You apply yourself to one task, and you can push your thoughts down one channel and focus on something and achieve it
I try.
without wavering.
I try because what else am I gonna do? You know, I figured out one of the great things about getting sober, and then at the time I did it, and then pushing myself through all of that. Is I figured out what makes me happy, and what makes me happy is getting better. The trick to getting better is you gotta be unhappy for a little bit. So I don't put any stock in how I feel or the difficulty of a task because I understand that I need to do it. Right, nothing's gonna change. It needs to be done, and so let's just get to it. Let's start getting the benefits and the progress from it. But once
Because
that,
you're into this Stoic philosophy now.
oh, very much so. You know, I didn't really realize it was a Stoic philosophy until I learned about the Stoics. I didn't. I think a lot of people read about Stoicism and then begin practicing it. It seems like what I'm learning, I have naturally been practicing it, and now I'm just reading that there's a formal system kind of behind it.
And you're applying that to, you call it street smart Stoicism.
Yeah, because you have to, you can't just take a concept and that was born of a completely different time with completely different stresses and problems. You can't just take that concept and apply it to the modern world. Okay, there has to be some modifications. It's a new domain. You have to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what can be modified, what can be altered, and that requires becoming a student of it and then porting it over to your experiences. And one of the things, and I'll be the first person to admit that I'm not the best student of Stoicism, but I understand the basics. Uh, and what I've done is kind of re-engineer my philosophy, and I'm learning that how I've naturally seen the world aligns to this. And so it just makes more sense to continue to learn more about it to see if I can better refine my thought process and better approach the world.
So how would you summarize that street smart Stoicism then?
You know that it's important to understand human nature, but how you feel about human nature does not change human nature. A lot of people go, "That's horrible. That shouldn't happen." And my mentality is, okay, that's horrible, but it happened, and probably it's happened before, and will happen in the future. So what we need to do is we need to mitigate the downside, whether that be through avoidance or management. And we need to make sure we disincentivize it as well with punishment and castigation. And we also need to incentivize acting opposite to it. You know, so that's I think Warren Buffett talked about kind of understanding incentives in this regard, and I think that is how I'd sum up a Stoic Street Smarts approach to living. That dealing with other people, right? That's just the honest. As far as dealing with yourself, I can sum that up as you know the difficulty of a task is irrelevant if it's important to your success. I really don't like to get caught up in how difficult something will be or how long something will be. I just kind of look at it and go, okay, for what I want to do, I got to do X, Y, and Z. And if I can find a more efficient route, sure, we'll take it. But let's get started now and see what pops up along the way. One of the coolest things, you know, what having an accomplishment teaches you is that getting started is more important than anything else. You don't need to work harder. You don't need to work smarter. You just need to work. You'll figure it out eventually if you're serious. And really, part of figuring it out, you have to make the mistakes of inefficiency and ineffectiveness. You have to bump into the wall. So you have a respect for what it takes to get there. And furthermore, so um, if you see someone on the same path or a similar path, you have an idea of what they're going through. Makes you humble, but also making you aware.
That's what I see. I'm trying to see how people in service to others are the most inspiring, and also the people who've developed, like yourself, who you've come through these experiences and you can speak the language, you can transfer this knowledge into a language that the people you grew up with can understand.
Yeah,
People struggling.
and my goal is I'm a communicator and a teacher. So I don't believe in keeping the meaning of something, or rather disguising the meaning of something through superfluous or extraneous language. I don't think that's really useful. What is more useful, what is far more useful, is making sure the concept is simple enough for a lot of people to understand it and implement it, even if it's not the most precise interpretation. We want to get a useful interpretation with it being as precise as it can. We can figure out the details kind of later, but we need it to be useful because people need to do things, and when you do things, things can happen. When things happen, that's how things change.
Mm. Yeah, you are very concise. You're very active on Twitter, and you've using it as an art form, really, with the poems and
Oh, it's a fun time,
quotes. Ah.
it's an extremely fun time. I don't really know. I'm so grateful that Twitter exists. Who knows where I mean, I like to think I'd get to where I am and where I'm gonna be anyway. But you want to talk about pouring some gasoline on a fire, man? There's nothing like it. Especially if you have any talent whatsoever for writing, there's nothing like it. There's no substitute. There will never. I don't say never, but it's gonna be very
Mm.
hard for there to be another Twitter.
It's very different to the long form, isn't it? You really test out your thoughts straight away in the real
Yeah,
world.
and the thing is, like, I have, like, my blog is a great long form piece of content. It's done a wonderful job at promoting me and building up my following and get exposing people to my work. But it's just one thing. So I got a newsletter for other things. I'm gonna start building a LinkedIn
Mm.
now. As long as the guys keep going, go do LinkedIn. You got to do LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, man. Because I have like all this content. I've got to do something with it.
You have a very black sense of humor in both senses of the word, no?
Yeah. Because if you don't have a sense, it's very hard to trust people who can't make jokes, who can't
Mm.
laugh. This whole thing is a joke. You gonna die anyway. Just people forget. Like that's the greatest joke, man.
That's
Like
very stoic.
you see, and I've always thought that, right? Uh, like that's the greatest joke, man. You spend all this time, hustling and bustling about being busy, being productive, being pissed off, being chasing happiness, whatever, and none of it's gonna matter because we all got about the same amount of time on this planet. Um, but I think one of the differences between Stoicism and existentialism is, at least in my approach to it, is that although I think both parties kind of come to the same conclusion about
Hmm.
the about the significance of life, that is where the similarities end. And I bring this up because it's just easy for someone to say, "Oh, if you think that, then why do anything? It doesn't matter." I'm like, no, no, no. That is one response to the dilemma of the meaninglessness of life. The other response, the response I've chosen, is to create and imply and imprint my own meaning onto it, to have a spiritual connection with the world. Whether that means anything, whether that's just a hoax or not, is irrelevant. What is relevant is how it makes me feel, interact, and what I get out of it. So, in other words, even if this 90 years or so that I get, hope it's 90, uh, is completely meaningless in the long term, which it most certainly will be, um, then it still holds some meaning for the people that I interact with and myself, and that's the best I can do. right? But I
Hmm.
never lose sight. It's like a thought in the back. You know what it's like? It's like going to a play, right? And you know that what you see is not actually happening. But you still, if they do their job right, you still get engaged with the characters. You still have an emotional reaction. You become interested, but you know it's going to end. You know it's not real. You'd be mad if someone interrupted you and were rude, the whole thing. But you know it's not an actual thing, and that probably sums up how I feel about life. I know that this idea of my life is kind of an illusion, but it's the one I'm dealing with right now, and it's okay.
Mm.
I know that no matter what
Yeah.
happens, I'm gonna be out of here in what is it, 60 or 70 years? I'm out, man. So I got a bit of time left. Hopefully, I'm nice and mobile
Hmm.
and functional for all that time. We got some great life extension drugs and medicine is incredible. We'll see.
But that's so funny because you've come to this conclusion from this knowledge, that from this belief that it's you just get this amount of time. But somebody could have the same belief and then they, why learn Russian or why learn Spanish? It doesn't
Right.
really matter.
Exactly. Because it doesn't. But look, man, look, I got this brain. I'm here. I want to enjoy my time. Look, it's on a macro scale. It's the same argument I gave to myself on a micro scale. When I was discussing with myself whether I should go to school and get my degree. I was 27, 28 when I finally took my first class, but I enrolled at 27. And I said, well, the 5 years are going to pass anyway.
Hmm.
God willing, you'll be around for all of them. 5 years are going to pass anyway. Are you going to get to the end of those 5 years with more options or fewer options? And I said, well, I'm going to be alive and I have no desire to kill myself, and hopefully I'm not dead. So I'd like to have a better life. I'd like to have one that is more interesting to me. So I went and did those things. And now I think, I mean, look, I can't imagine what my life would be like if I had made some crucial decisions along the way. But I made those decisions with this framework in place. The time's going to pass anyway.
Mm. It's something I've also thought a lot about, and I've researched it as well. What the proof for that is? What is the proof that this is it? When you're dead, it's over. And I couldn't find any evidence for that.
Well,
And I've also some of my guests. I've spoken to my other guests I've had on the podcast, and there is much more evidence. There is actual evidence for the contrary, that we are in a reincarnatory cycle, and it makes a lot more sense, and it gives a lot more meaning. So, is that something you've thought about?
I've dabbled in the thoughts of reincarnation and what that means ultimately, growing up, and I'll say this from a thought perspective: there is nothing that says it's impossible, and that's really important because one thing science is really good at is figuring out ways to do things that are not explicitly forbidden. And there are only two things that are explicitly forbidden right now, one being the violation of causality. A causes B. You can't have B go back and uncause A, though. Like, this is not how it works. And in the flow of time, in other words, time only flows in one direction, as we know right now. And 100% efficiency is impossible. Okay. So, in other words, there's always some loss of to heat is what the official term is in physics. So nothing says reincarnation is impossible. Um, from a spiritual perspective, I don't really give it much thought because nothing about it would change how I interact with people now. Because my whole method of interacting with humans is to try and leave them better. Because I'm aware of what happens. What happens is this is what knowledge gives you. When you're
Mm.
aware of how your actions affect another, and you've seen that negatively, you've seen it positively, you can't turn that away. You can't shut that off. So what it does is it makes you treat people in a method in a way that helps you bring about the change you'd like to see in the world, the way you'd like to see other people behave. I think there's an old saying. This is exactly this kind of from Buddhism. I think like be the change you want to see. That's the idea, right? To me, that's far more powerful than the golden rule. This makes contingencies for dealing with less than desirable behavior in a method that disincentivizes in the future, which may not necessarily coincide with the golden rule. But I don't think too much about reincarnation simply because if it is true, right now we can't access those memories and skills. Now, if you're telling me there's some people that have the knowledge of 10 lifetimes and they can tap it up, well, yeah, I'd probably dig a little more into it. I would love to start the next life over knowing exactly what I know now. That'd be awesome, but that's not how it works. So
I think you definitely take through your personality traits, and that's one of the reasons that you accelerated through while other people didn't. And maybe this knowledge doesn't help you, doesn't really affect you because you're doing the best you want to do, be the best you can be, and you want to help everyone. But there's many people who, if reincarnation was taught in school as a science, then it would certainly change their perspective on life.
yeah, I think it would, and that's another thing with worth considering. Is that when you know the modern person has bit of a disdain for organized religion, disdain which I can understand, right?
Oh yeah.
With that said, people forget that there is actual anthropological evidence, and even if you didn't have that, we just have the fact that we understand psychology and humanity better now. We can see that if it wasn't for organized religion, then humans would be stuck in tribes. Because what happens in tribes is that you can only enforce the law as far as you can see it. It's very much kind of an eye for an eye, so there's no chance of retribution. Uh, people, it's also very much a take what you can, you know, kill what you keep kind of mentality. And you're always warring with other tribes because you're trying to exert your superiority over them. And part of that warring is killing. It's no coincidence that the very first commandment is "Thou shalt not kill." And if you look at that from a how do I get people to advance the quickest and kind of stop this foolishness? Well, let's tell them that there's a place they're gonna go when they die, and if they break this rule and they send someone to that place early, they're not gonna go there. And all of a sudden now you disincentivize a lot of warfare that was probably in conflict. What's the next thing? Thou shalt not steal. Yeah, if you keep taking people's shit, they're probably gonna want to break the first commandment, right? If you bang somebody else's wife, guess what they're probably gonna want to do to you too. Like so, it just keeps going on and on, and it all comes back to not to getting people to stop being like animals and get them to exercise that part of their brain that allows them to think like and to consider the effects of their actions and plan for it. I mean, you couldn't make one of the things about cities, for example, compared to tribes, is cities. It's possible to be anonymous and disappear. You can do violence. You can commit crime in cities, and it's not so easy to find you. So if we're going to grow this big, we need a way to get that crime to the minimum. And then now we have, incredible technology in place. But prior to that, you needed an honor system. You needed people to believe in something greater than themselves, and as a way to kind of make themselves behave more easily. In fact, that's a really interesting argument to make and consider is that the rise of technology and social media correlates with the lack of interest in organized religion precisely for that reason. Is that now people kind of go, well, I know if you're good or bad because I'll be able to see it, or at least I'm more likely to. It's going to be more difficult to disguise it and act on those urges. So, so if we figure out, I remember one of my favorite book series by Laurel K. Hamilton, the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series. There's a church group in that series, and they're vampires, and the line was, forget the question of the afterlife. Here it is right now. You'll just live forever. We got it for you. Boom. And and so if you imagine what would happen if people were like, oh, well, there's no threat of this death thing, so there's no threat of this, that, or the other. Um, I'll just be a monstrosity. I'll just treat people as I want to treat them. So that's so I bring all this up in response to you talking about what would happen if reincarnation was taught in schools, because for a while, for most of humanity, and I still think now, or most of civilized society, we have worked on a largely Judeo-Christian foundation, and I think a lot of our values reflect that, for better and worse.
Yeah, no, that's wow. You thought a lot about this. Really...
Well, they're interesting problems to think about. Because if for any other reason, I am a student of people. Like for example, I don't care who wins any election. I don't even vote, but I am fascinated by the tactics used to win or not. Like for example, I caught a lot of flack for this but I catch flack on either side because most people can't sit in the middle and think, right? Uh, I made a tweet a few days ago that the people in 2016 who were saying not my president are no different than the people in 2020 saying the election was rigged, and that incited, and people jumped in and gave me all this proof, and I'm like, well, here's why this is likely occurring. Talking about statistics, because you bring up numbers to me, that's what I train and study. I don't just look at the numbers and I'm fooled by, like, I kind of know what to look at, but I'm also looking at what my odds, and by odds I mean my knowledge of humans, and kind of what I think incentivizes them. And that stuff is important.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in society but not of it.
That's probably a good way to think about it. Because one of the things I say is I refuse to let my mental space be invaded by even an iota of this. Now I'm probably a little too close, even caring about the tactics, but I will not let myself start picking and choosing which side is more or less the better option, because I know I can't shake the fact that I know that that's a false choice, a false dichotomy. And I can't in good knowledge participate in it if I have a choice not to, because psychologically I look at it and I just go, you're telling me that 300 million plus people are supposed to choose between one or two people, and we know how much kind of corruption and backdealing and willing and dealing goes on. How can you still have faith? Like how can you interact and participate in the system? But that's my decision, and I fully recognize that if everyone did that, that's probably a bad thing. So I'm fortunate that I get to kind of reap the benefits of the herd.
Okay, well, I could keep chatting to you all night, but I should probably condense this down into a song. So, is there I think Simon and Garfunkel have already done The Boxer, so I don't think I can top that. And is there another aspect of the Ed Latimore story, or is there a red line, or is there because you're so multifaceted, is there something you would like to focus on in a song?
I'm a big fan of always getting better. You can always make yourself better. Boxing is just an area where you get to see that. You can see it in other areas of my life too. My blog, for example, there's 90 pieces on it right now. There should be about 120, but we took down a bunch because as I was developing as a writer, I said, these won't work anymore. I'm just better than this, and I can create better content. I can't have this up as a representation on the blog. So,
is there a particular post or one of your books that you says is the best thing you've written at the moment?
I don't know if I would say best, but certainly most impactful. Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. That is I really am happy with that book because of how many people it's helped. It's the best thing I could give back to the world.
Okay. Oh, well, that sounds like a good one. What can you sum it up for me?
It's just about
the title says it all.
Oh yeah, the title says it all. It was a book, helping people to deal with the the emotional difficulties of sobriety. A lot of people talk, I found that wasn't discussed a lot when I was getting sober. So I said, let me talk about what I did to cope, to deal with that, to make strides. No one warned you about these things.
Okay. I heard you say on another interview that many people say they have a drink problem, but it's not so much a drink problem if it gets you through, but it's when you drink with the consequences or something like that.
Yeah, when you start drinking beyond the consequences, when you don't care about them, when your drinking is compulsive, and compulsive in the sense that you may not necessarily want to drink, but for whatever reason, whether that be external sources or internal motivation, you go above our internal pressure, you cave and you drink.
Okay, so you see the consequences, but you still persevere with the bad behavior.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay. Oh. Oh, thanks. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to cover? I mean,
I think that's pretty solid. This has been a cool combo, man. Very cool conversation. Certainly talked about some things I don't think I've talked about on any other show.
What kind of music do you like? Because I do different different styles of music.
Man, I love everything. Really, it's just I'm a big fan of music, but I think the best right now I'm listening to a lot of jazz, a lot of 90s rap, a lot of orchestra. If it's well put together, I tend to enjoy it.
Okay.
Big fan of violins.
Yeah.
Like the way those sound, string instruments. Big fan of those.
Oh, I'll try and put some strings in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh well, thanks, Ed. I mean, and everyone can get hold of your Ed Latimore everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, Ed Latimore everywhere. Yeah, you definitely listen to some podcasts. Yeah, because I tell people that everywhere, man. That you can find me anywhere. Ed Latimore on Instagram. Ed Latimore on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. My website's latimore.com.
All right, I'll send you the song as soon as it's done.
Thank you very much.
I drink to cope, I drink to cleanse. I drink, though I know where it ends. I drink routinely, I drink out of habit. It's a crutch now and I need to have it. I drink for boredom, I drink to numb. In mundane social situations, I drink for peers, I drink to belong. I drink, though I know that it's wrong. I need to acknowledge that I am afraid. What happens afterwards is what must I trade. I need to set a goal, have something to attain. And I need new habits to maintain the gains. I drink to dull, I drink to distort. I drink to silence repetitive thoughts. I drink with purpose, I drink to purge. I drink whenever I've the urge. I need to acknowledge that I am afraid. What happens afterwards is what must I trade. I need to set a goal, have something to attain. And I need new habits to maintain the gains. I drink to mask, I drink to hide the self-loathing that I feel inside. I drink to overcome, I drink to be free from stress and anxiety. I need to acknowledge that I am afraid. What happens afterwards is what must I trade. I need to set a goal, have something to attain. And I need new habits to maintain the gains. I need to acknowledge that I am afraid. What happens afterwards is what must I trade. I need to set a goal, have something to attain. And I need new habits to maintain the gains.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review on your podcast app. If you'd like to hear the song again, just go to Spotify, Deezer, iTunes, stream it till your heart's content, or even better, because 1,000 streams buys me a cup of coffee, is to pay $1 on Podsongs.com, and all that money goes to pay for the musicians, Maurizio Sanicola and Massimino Vozza, and my researcher Dori Verba, and a cup of coffee. Alright, thanks very much. See you next time.